Hey Phil, this is Cameron.
Hey, what's up, Cam?
Man, I gotta talk to you about something. Have you been watching the news?
Dude, what is going on? What's up, everybody? I'm Phil.
And I'm Cameron.
Two Navy vets, just here to talk politics.
We're here with some differing views, but we're here to have a civil and a healthy discussion.
Thanks for tuning in to Pocket Politics. Welcome back to Pocket Politics, Cam. It is our 10th episode. We've made it 10 official weeks doing that. But this week,
We're gonna be talking some student loan forgiveness.
and more Trump as the weeks carry on. The Trump affidavit was released for the search warrant on Mar-a-Lago, and the Mueller memo fully released this week.
We've got some information to discuss on abortions.
And primaries. I think it's time to get started. Let's roll right in.
All right, let's do it. Let's talk student loans. All right, so this week, the Biden administration has announced that they want to forgive, if you will, $10,000 per student for outstanding debt on college loans.
And up to
$20,000 for Pell Grants.
For Pell Grant recipients.
You are eligible for this if you earn $125,000 per year or less.
And it's tiered, right? So depending on what your income level is, depends on how much you're actually going to get, which I think is a good thing.
Now, the undergrad loans, also, from what I'm hearing for this, the undergrad loans are capped at 5% of income. The White House estimates this is going to cost $24 billion per year. Wall Street Journal and many other sources are citing higher numbers like $300 billion per year. Phil, what do you think?
I thought the $300 billion per year was actually a $300 billion overall.
I saw per year. Either way, though, I'm seeing different numbers floating around.
Yeah, the bottom line, the biggest thing you need to know about $300 billion is that we gave double that to fossil fuel companies as subsidies last year.
Well, we subsidize many industries to keep them
I
afloat
agree,
in the country.
but subsidizing fossil fuel industries when they make a ton of money, anyway, is just kind of bullshit.
So this is not without controversy in and of itself, though. And one of the biggest things you see is the fairness piece, right? And so there are people all over the country right now that are saying, "Hey, look, I didn't take out college loans. Why am I now paying for that? I know me personally, I didn't take any out.
True.
So now why am I as a taxpayer going to pay?
And neither did I. But guess what? I as a taxpayer pay for all kinds of things that don't affect me.
But
I mean, that's part of what makes our country great is that taxpayers pay money for things, right? Just because your house isn't on fire doesn't mean you don't pay your fair share of. Hold on. Just because your house is not on fire doesn't mean you don't pay your fair share to the fire department.
Right, that's for protection. This was a personal decision people made when they signed off on a loan.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that. I do agree. However, what we're realizing is that over time, this program has been screwed up, right? If the baby boomers, in fact, hadn't have, decided they didn't want to pay taxes to subsidize college tuition costs in the first place, right? Because that used to just be subsidized, right? Most of college was paid for, right? Again, this is another thing where this is an example of how we are so far behind most other developed countries in the world. Because most other developed countries, they don't have to take out a loan with interest, all right? And the other thing is those government-backed loans are actually run by a private company, Sallie Mae, right? It's predatory. People were getting preyed upon taking these loans. They may not have necessarily had to, but they were pushed into taking them anyway. There's all kinds of reasons why this over time is a good thing.
So again, I disagree, right? And I mentioned the fairness piece earlier, and I know that is resonating with a lot of people.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people that are out there saying that.
You know what I don't think
is
fair? You know what I don't think is fair is the former president, the former guy, defaulting on $260 million worth of loans that we as taxpayers had to pay for because he filed for bankruptcy.
Okay, well,
what's the difference?
Again, people file for bankruptcy all the time.
What's the difference?
Let's look at some numbers on this, okay? As of June, Americans held $4.5 trillion in consumer debt, okay? But fewer than 1 in 4 households actually have student debt. and it's more common in higher income people. Interestingly enough, tuition for an in-state four-year public university still only runs a little over $8,000 per year. Sounds like that's relatively affordable.
Yeah, but over the past like 20 years, it's up like 25%.
So it has gone up, but still, a little over $8,000 for a four-year public university really doesn't sound that bad. Now, there are obviously many schools that are going to be a lot higher than that, certainly private, etc. Here's something though: 59% of Americans fear this is going to drive up inflation, to include an Obama economist. So there's definitely that out there.
Well, there is that, but there's also the Harvard Business School did a study that said that forgiveness of student loans actually improves the economic condition of our country.
Now, Larry Summers, who not long ago, Democrats were cheering this man because he basically gave a thumbs up to the Inflation Reduction Act. He's come out and said this thing is inflationary, stay away.
But it's really only inflationary in the college sector, because for some reason we have public institutions in our country profiteering off of this stuff.
Estimates this is going to cost about $2,000 per taxpayer. So essentially, now everybody has student debt.
Yeah, but look, if it's a public institution, it should be public.
But here's the thing,
Right?
though, right? I mean, we're going back to the public and private. That's kind of a separate debate, really. What I'm getting at is that, and please, we can certainly talk about fixing what sounds like it may be broken, but what I want to keep going back to is that there are people in this country that are now saddled with paying off college debt, and they never went to college.
This happens in so many other aspects of our country, right? This happens as a daily part of life, that you get saddled, is what you're calling it. That's really just called paying taxes for things that other people take a benefit of and that we don't get any benefits from, right?
How am I going to get benefits from paying off somebody's college debt?
Because overall it increases the productivity of our society, and that benefits us all, right? When people are more educated and not debt laden, then the society as a whole goes up.
So again, well, I'll say this. Nancy Pelosi herself said in 2021 that the president does not have the power to forgive student debt. And
Well,
then
there is that question that there is that question that, this could get challenged in a court, and probably is going to get challenged in a court, and we don't know exactly how the courts are going to rule, because it does involve money. It does involve money, and it involves budgeting, and it involves taxes, which also kind of is Congress's realm.
Yeah.
So I do think there is going to be some hefty challenges to this, but you know what? If anything, it's going to take a long time, and it's not going to be very popular. I mean, you yourself mentioned a poll where 57% of Americans were happy about this, right? And I guarantee you 57% of Americans is higher than the percentage of Americans with student loan debt.
Now, to be fair, that poll was on Michael Smerkonish's show earlier today. It was not a nationwide. Well, I guess it was nationwide. Who
Didn't
knows
you
where
tell
his
me
listeners
earlier
are coming
that
in.
Michael Smerkonish goes like both ways? Like,
No, he does. He does.
To be fair, Michael's
He just read off his
Smerkonish's-
poll,
yeah,
right?
I mean, his poll is like...
I'm not telling you necessarily. In fact, he didn't really say, from what I remember, like so much whether he agreed or disagreed. He was just stating different, both sides of this thing.
Did you know that the former guy forgave $750 million in student loans, by the way?
So, no.
Were people not angry about that?
All right.
We didn't even hear about that. You don't even find that out until you do research after this legislation, so that I can argue with you on the podcast.
Let's go back into the numbers here, all right? We're talking about $2,000 per taxpayer. Again, like I said earlier, now everybody's going to be saddled with student debt. And 45% of people with bachelor's degrees that graduate with them have no debt.
Where is that stat from, that $2,000 per taxpayer? I don't
remember where I got
per
it.
year?
Yeah, that would be per year.
No.
I don't remember where I got it from.
No taxpayers, their taxes are not going to go up by $2,000 a year. That's absurd.
I don't remember where I got it from. Maybe it may not have been for the year. I don't remember. But
Cameron,
hang on. Let me keep
think
going.
about how absurd that sounds.
Let me keep going with this. 45% of people graduate with a bachelor's degree with no debt. Okay,
I agree. Well, the student
7%,
loans are way higher for
7%
postgraduate
who borrow
work.
have a balance over $100,000. Most of those people, by the way, are doctors and lawyers. I'm pretty sure they can afford to pay off their student debts.
Yes, as is most debt held by postgraduate.
54% of these people with this debt owe less than $20,000. Less than $20,000. That is something that you should be able to pay. This has been dubbed, and I agree with this. This is radical progressives yet again violating the Constitution and statute to further enrich the well-off at the expense of everyone else.
How does this
is
further
just-
enrich the well-off?
Because these are a lot of these people are people that and people are talking about this. A number of these people that are sitting there that are living in their mom and dad's basement that went to college for who knows how long and now are sitting there doing little to nothing to pay off their loans, and now we are giving them a break.
Wait, hold on.
This is not
Cameron, stop. Give me a second. You just said that most of this money goes to postgraduate degrees. I said that as well because you said most of these people are doctors and lawyers, and then you turn
only
around. Hold on.
7%.
Okay. But then you turn around and say these are people that are living in their mom's basement,
I think there are a number of
and
them
not
that
doing
are.
anything.
Yeah, I think there are a number of them that are.
You know why people are still living in mom and dad's basement is because there's a housing crisis, right? People are saddled with
And
student
yet there's
loans.
work everywhere. And yet there's work everywhere.
Yeah, but
These
you say
people-
there's work everywhere. We have currently the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years.
And then why aren't people paying their debts? This is what I'm getting at. So you honestly think it's fair to ask working class Americans to pay for somebody's college
Yes,
education?
I think
I
a
do
basic
not.
okay. I think a basic economic principle, right, is that it is fair to benefit the society as a whole.
This will
By
not.
but it does because it increases productivity, which makes our economy better.
So you really believe that this will increase productivity?
Yes.
A generous handout.
Yes, I do.
So communism, let me remind you, has been shown to not work.
This is not communism. Guess what? And again, not talking about student loans specifically, but this is an example of how we are very behind all other developed countries in the world, right? Because guess what? Their universities are subsidized heavily in the first place, just like ours were before 1970, right? Our universities, it was almost free for people to go to college, right? And so some people did and some people didn't.
I will boil it down to this. If you made a decision to sign off on a loan, you should be man or woman enough to pay that back.
So then why don't you have to pay something back when you file for bankruptcy?
This thing doesn't have bankruptcy brought up into it, and
It actually does. It actually does because
so I will say this too. I am not going to sit and defend people that file bankruptcy to get out of things. I'm not trying to do that. I am just trying to say, for a guy like me, looking at this on the surface, I disagree with this. I have a mortgage. Can I get $10,000 towards my mortgage?
no, but do you get certain benefits by having a mortgage? Look. There's generations of people that were sold in the American dream and told, "Hey, if you go to college, you can buy a home, you can do this. This is all the American dream." And then they fall to a predatory lending practice, right? And so at the end of the day, right, stuff like this just helps people, right? This has been shown it's going to be very advantageous to poorer people.
Who says that? I mean, what studies are you seeing where it shows that we're going to have a more productive society?
No, I'm just saying that's in general, right? When you put more money into the pockets, right? This is a
Where do
general
we stop
economic.
with the handouts. I mean, it seems like we're a nation of handouts now, and I can't get behind that, and neither can millions of others.
You don't think that's a little bit of a stretch to say because of this student loan, we're a nation of handouts?
We could go on and on. There are many handouts. I'm not saying simply this, but there are many cases of handouts.
Some of those should honestly be put into the category of basic human rights.
So
right,
how
come you don't have
about
to take out a loan in Germany or England or Sweden, right? Like you don't have to do that. You just go to university. How come?
So you're talking about a system that is broken, right? I'm not disagreeing with you about the system. That's another debate, et cetera, et cetera. But what I'm trying to get back to is the fact of the matter is people signed up for loans and now we're forgiving them. You don't think that's a slap in the face to many Americans? Let me say this. I saw a clip just this morning, Elizabeth Warren, very progressive senator out of Massachusetts who has championed this, her and Bernie Sanders for years, right? And I saw Elizabeth Warren standing there in Iowa 2 or 3 years ago, or a few years back. I don't remember the exact year, but it was when she was running for president. She was stumping in Iowa, and she had brought up the student loan forgiveness. And there was a gentleman that went up to her and said, "Ma'am, I sacrificed and saved to put my kids through college. And I had neighbors who did not." Right? And so now my kids are paid off, my neighbors are not. So you're telling me you want to forgive them? You want to just pay their stuff off? And he's like, "Is that fair to me?" And she couldn't answer him. And she basically started chuckling at the guy, and the guy said, "Now you're laughing at me." And finally she walked away, refusing to answer his questions, and said, "Thank you for your time." This is what it's affecting. There are a lot of people that are very angry. And I will tell you, I have watched my social media over the last few days since this broke. There are people, so many people have turned out on social media being upset about this. And a lot of it just boils down to, hey, you signed for a loan, pay it off. And that's what I'm getting at. Mitch McConnell himself said, this is the slap in the face to working Americans.
It's not, though. Working Americans went to college and have student loan debt.
Not every working American
I didn't say every working American, but Mitch McConnell didn't say every working American.
He said working Americans.
Yeah, working Americans have college debt that they want to, right? They have student loan debt that they want forgiven.
Now, there are a lot of emotion on this issue, right? And I will also say this. It's interesting from a political standpoint. I actually talked to some people this week. One was two of them were independents, who both kind of neutral on the issue. Mm-hmm. Then I talked to a Democrat who's actually, now to be fair, a little bit older, has never went to college. The man's in his early 60s. He was angered by it. He's a Democrat. How dare I have to pay for somebody's
but the same thing.
Loans.
I told you a couple things, right? Like, my wife went and got a 4-year degree. She took out student loans, and she is really not going to be able to benefit from most of this because she just finished paying them off, right? A vast majority of these loans just get paid off, right? We're forgetting to mention that. Like, the other thing is,
people have paid their loans off.
Yeah, but the other thing is that this happens all the time, right? People default on stuff, they can't pay their loans, and then it just gets forgiven. The former president defaulted on, depending on where the reporting is, some of them are upwards of $260 million, right? Where do you think that money went? Where do you think that money went?
So again,
where do you think that money went?
No, hang on.
Where do you think that money went?
No, you talk. So again, we keep roping in all these other examples. All I'm saying is this, right? And again, I'm not saying I'm a fan of bankruptcy. But again, at the end of the day, I'm going to stand by this. You signed on the dotted line to take out a loan. You should pay it back.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but since we already forgive a whole bunch of loans for all kinds of other stuff, right, including PPP loans for probably sham businesses, right? We already do that, and because we do that anyway, why are we singling this one type of loan out that we say, nope, this is the one loan that can't be forgiven?
I am not a fan of people not paying anything back. If you sign on the dotted line to take out a loan, you should pay it back. And I don't understand why people are just assume this is good. I mean, it's people are running around saying, hey, yeah, it's going to affect all these people. There aren't even that many people that are going to take this back. Get their loans forgiven because they paid them off.
I agree. That's why I'm saying this isn't as big of a deal as Republicans are making it out to be.
But it's a slap in the face. And you know what? There's going to be political fallout from this.
Cameron, I, like you, have never taken a student loan.
Right. Why should I have to pay for someone?
But I still think this is a good thing.
And I don't.
I told you midweek, right? I had a friend that reached out to me and said, look, I voted for Biden specifically for this issue because I wanted student loan debt forgiven, and turns out I'm not going to be able to benefit from these at all because I make over $125,000, right? But he was still happy about it.
Yeah. Well,
right? And like I said, my wife, who has almost paid off her student loans in full after 18 years of struggling with these things, and keep in mind that she wasn't really able to get a job in the profession that she got a degree in. All right? Now, think about it like this. What about all the people that graduated college with student loans 2005, 2006, right? Then the economy collapses, right? Because of, guess what, bad lending, like bad predatory lending practices, collapse the economy. And what did we do? We bailed those companies out, right? And so people that paid for a 4-year degree or took out a loan don't have a job and can't get one because of bad lending practices. You don't think some of their student loan debt should be forgiven potentially?
These people should have jobs, though. They've gone to college, and there's jobs all over the place to be had.
But if you graduated,
take a job, pay your loan.
Look, if you graduated in 2004 to 2007, you may have had a job, and then that job wasn't around anymore.
Here's my thing. You want something bad enough, go get it, right? Get up in this country, shovel some coffee down your throat in the morning, go to work, and start paying your bills. And you know what? Millions of people feel the same way I do. I'm telling you. And I think there's going to be some political fallout from this. This right now, this very issue...
Biden's numbers are still going up.
But have we seen his numbers going up since Wednesday when he announced this? I think it was either Wednesday or Tuesday.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when the last poll I saw was, but...
Here's what I am seeing and hearing. This is energizing GOP and independents. This is the issue that has them fired up. And let's keep in mind, not all Democrats favor this very issue. This is something that is not... That actually has some Democrats, like I said, speaking out against this. Here we go now. The grand old party, the Republicans, they are set to come roaring right on back. As I said a minute ago, their base is energized. I've looked at a couple of Senate races. Now we see, Tim Ryan is falling behind now to J.D. Vance in Ohio. John Fetterman's lead over Mehmet Oz is starting to shrink in Pennsylvania. It has shrunk. He's down like a 4-point lead. So I think this is momentum for the Republicans, certainly. And like I said, a number of independents. And let's not forget, several Democrats have actually come out since the president announced this and spoken out against it. Representative Jared Golden of Maine said this is out of touch. He's a Democrat. Tim Ryan warned this is going to rally Ohioans without degrees. He said, hey, why should a truck driver here in Ohio have to go pay for somebody's college debt? Tim Ryan, again, running in a very tight Senate race in a red state. So he's got to do.
I gotcha.
But there's more. Hang on. Let me just say.
Okay, look. People don't agree with this, right? But people don't agree on most stuff.
But let me finish with the Democrats though. There's a number of them speaking out. Michael Bennet in Colorado, tough race.
The first thing we've ever heard from this guy.
Well, you remember last week you said I've never heard anything from Michael Bennet.
Yeah,
there you go.
But, so okay, before you continue with this, just know that these are all guys speaking out that are in tight races
and gals.
Guys and gals, but
yep.
These are all people that are in tight races. So they have to toe that line.
So Michael Bennett's race is getting tighter as O'Day is crawling into a, well, how should I say it? He's narrowing the lead, if you will.
I like your use of the word crawl when talking about a Republican.
So
I think that's
Michael Bennet. He said this should have been targeted. He had a plan to pay for it
because they're like bugs.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm all right. So now I'm continuing to go on with this though. Representative Chris Pappas, a Democrat of New Hampshire, said there's no way to make this policy. Catherine Cortez Mastro, who's in a tight race out in Nevada,
another tight race.
Doesn't agree. She said it doesn't address a root problem. Representative Sharice David, a Democrat of Kansas, said, I would have handled this.
I got all there are several of them. I got all your examples. Guess what? This is the exact same thing as the guy in the Virginia race, right, that says, I don't associate myself with Trump. I don't like that guy. Sometimes politicians have to come out for things that they know are, like, somewhat unpopular because it helps them win their tight race. All those people you, like, mentioned, right? The lady from Kansas, a Democrat in one of the most red states in the country. Of course she has to say, because this is controversial, that she doesn't support it.
Now, to be fair, she's not running a statewide race. She's probably in a more populous area.
But she's got to come out and say these things because she's a Democrat in Kansas, just like Masto, just like Bennett, right?
Bennett's in a blue state. Bennett's in the problem with Bennett
but he's in a tight race, though.
He sure is, because he's got a moderate Republican nipping at his heels. Mm-hmm. Who himself came out and blasted this thing, all right? Let's not forget the guy he's running against, a working class guy who rose from the ground up. right? Built a business.
Okay,
So
okay, I gotcha.
a
What
lot
I'm
of
saying
Democrats-
is,
and
I'm sure none of those people have college degrees or anything like that either. But what I'm saying is that
I think
at the
all
end
of
of the
them
day, we know it's controversial, right? I got it. We know it's controversial, but 57% of the people, according to Smirkonish's poll,
This
are
morning,
happy
yep.
with this.
Okay, now his poll was only I don't remember how many. It wasn't a massive poll, but let me say this: do you think there's going to be fallout for Biden in this?
No, nope, and I don't think this is going to affect November. I will tell you that, in my personal opinion, I think that some of this weathering the storm is going to blow over. Nobody's yearly taxes are going to increase, or their returns, if they get one, are going to decrease by $2,000.
So that and that may have been over a period of years. I don't remember on that one. I know I read $2,000. That could have been over a period
it's not
of years.
your taxes aren't going up by $2,000.
Well, over a number of years they may. I mean, but here's the thing. I disagree. As I said earlier, this is energizing Republicans and independents. I think this is going to.
Cameron.
I think this is going to affect those races that are tight in these purple states. And Biden can't afford for that right now.
I think
this
it will
may
have,
cost him the Senate.
I think it will have some effect, right? But I don't think this is going to cost him the Senate. This is not Roe v. Wade, right? And on top of all the other things that Biden has been doing really well, and the fact that we've got a lot of these great communicators and people in the Democratic Party running that can overcome this. This is not going to be that.
Republicans have solid communicators too. And I will tell you, all indications are they are roaring back.
Well, they're trying, but remember we talked about some of this earlier, but there are some Republican gains in certain districts and in certain states, but there's also, for every one that I could find, there's more for Democrats.
I think this may very well cost Biden the Senate. I think, like I said, he didn't help out Ryan at all in Ohio. This may really affect that Pennsylvania race. This could strengthen Oz there, who's already gaining on Fetterman. Colorado, I saw a poll the other day that has O'Day only 5 points behind Bennett.
Yeah,
and so he's every week they do a poll with that guy. That guy gains. I mean, he could flip Colorado.
Yeah, and I agree, right? That there are going to be gains out of this, but I'll be honest with you. I think this washes over. This is not Roe v. Wade.
Well, let me say
right?
this, though.
And so this washes over, and I think that because the president is on a roll, he's going to do something that's probably a lot more popular next week. Because right now, every week for the past 5 weeks, he's signed some important piece of legislation. 2, keep in mind, this thing may not even hold up because, like I said,
I think the courts are going to toss it out.
Yeah, it involves money, right? There's no actual infrastructure set up. I mean, the WhiteHouse.gov almost collapsed. The website almost collapsed Wednesday with people going online to find out about this. I mean, if there's enough people in the country that
dangle free money, people are going to go for it.
Well, okay.
So let me ask you this though: why didn't Biden wait until after the midterms for this? When the Senate may have, the races are done. The Senate could be back in his hands, or it may then be Republican. But either way, why didn't he wait till after the midterms? I think it would have been a more favorable political time for him to do it after the midterms.
I don't think he's in the business of waiting. I think he's going to get as much stuff done because, listen, the Senate and the House, while I still think the Senate is going to increase in seats, and again, we've talked about this numerous times, November is going to be a reckoning for one of us in our predictions, for the most part, but I think that he's on the verge, and he knows that neither the House or the Senate are guarantees, so while he can get stuff done, get stuff done.
So I will give you that maybe he does see it as an opportunity, but he didn't ask the House or the Senate, he just went and did this.
I agree.
So I will say this.
But if he needs this to hold up long term, he needs the House and the Senate. And also, I think there are a lot of people out there who, I get it, every congressman that you spouted and all the people that you talk to and all the people on your Facebook, look, my Facebook disagrees, right? My Facebook looks completely different. The only 2 people that I saw on Facebook that didn't like this, right, were both military vets. One probably doesn't have a degree, but the other one definitely does, and got his degree on the GI Bill or tuition assistance, one of the programs that, just like you and I did, right?
Yeah, a program that we benefit by joining the military and serving our country. Yet again, I think kind of a slap in the face to veterans, right, who choose to join the service to go serve their country. And oh, by the way, we can give you some college benefits. And now, I don't know, kind of a slap in the face to us, really, because, hey, here's some free money to go to college.
I don't see that as a slap in the face at all,
I do.
right? Keep in mind.
How about the guy who, how about someone who joined and then went to war, now maybe missing a limb? I mean, there's all kinds of things.
Yeah, his
right?
student debt has already been forgiven.
Well, but what I'm saying is
Disabled
that
veterans-
he or she, they have sacrificed immensely.
Yeah, but their student debt was already forgiven.
Yeah, but maybe
Yeah,
they,
had
what
they
I'm
had
saying
it,
is
had
maybe,
they have it.
maybe they joined the military with a thought of paying for college, right?
Yeah.
And now they sit and watch people getting student loan debt.
Look, I've got sailors that have student loan debt because they accrued it for going to school for like 1, 2, 3 years, not finishing their degrees,
Right.
and join the military in order to then pay for it. Right? Should those guys be paying off interest on student debt loans? Like, that's the other part of this too. Is this student loan forgiveness? A lot of that is going to be interest paid, not even the debt itself.
That's how loans work.
No, I got that, but why? Okay, so they're federally backed loans that are run by a private company who charges interest. Does that sound fair to you?
Here's my thing.
Does that sound? I mean, I'm just saying. Does that sound fair to you?
If this is what's fair to me, you take out a loan, you pay it back.
I
I
heard you the first 3 times that you said that.
Yeah, and
okay,
I'm going to keep.
What I'm
saying
saying
it, I'm firm on that.
the government-backed loans that allows a private company, Sally Mae, to do this and charge interest on it to Americans, right? And lended, keep in mind, in very predatory ways, right? So people didn't always know what they were getting into.
You could
Do
say
you
that
think
about any
that's
loan out.
no? I agree, but do you think that's fair?
What do I think's fair? Again, I'm just going to say this.
And hold on,
This
you
happens-
can't exactly say that. You can't
This
exactly say
this
that about
happens
every
in
loan.
Almost every loan.
No, no, it doesn't. You don't trip and fall into a real estate agency and end up with a home loan, right?
So what? You trip and fall into a college?
No. People go to college, and sometimes there's people on those college campuses that are out there signing people up for loans that they aren't fully aware of. I'm 100% serious.
Stuff happens with car loans and everything.
I mean, I agree.
It does.
Some stuff does, but it also, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's there's something a little bit different about something as tangible as a car.
Well, again, I will tell you that I think there's going to be political fallout.
I think education's a basic human right.
I have said before. I definitely think the House is gonna go to the Republicans as far as do most people. I was saying for a while that I thought the Democrats had a real shot at the Senate, though, keeping it, and I still think they do. But I think little things like this hurt them. The Democrats have some other things working in their favors. I will certainly give them credit where credit's due, but I just thought this was an odd time for the president to come out with this. I think if he wanted to do this, he should have waited till after the midterms to avoid any kind of potential fallout. And it sure looks like there are candidates out there that are wishing he would have, Democratic candidates that are wishing he would have waited also.
And that may be possible, but let's move on. You know, we spent enough time arguing about that. Obviously, something both of you and I are passionate about. Where do you want to go next, Cam?
Let's look at that Trump affidavit here.
Did you read it? Take a look at it.
I've looked at it a little bit. The FBI said likely evidence of obstruction and classified defense documents were there.
Well, so there's 3 charges in there, right?
Yep.
So there's the mishandling of classified material, right? There's a ton of obstruction of justice, and there is one other one related to the material that was being held.
A couple episodes ago we read off, I think, what those charges were. It looks like the FBI found 184 classified documents from 15 boxes earlier this year when they were down in there. There's some new details in there about how the Department of Justice even got involved in this whole thing in the first place.
Yeah.
The redaction.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Just they were talking about how the DOJ got involved based on. I'd have to go back and look at all the notes.
So
on there.
DOJ got involved because NARA tried to get the records back, right?
That's what they were talking about.
And then when they refused to turn them over, and NARA knew that they were lying because they know what they have and what they don't have. They turn the case over to the DOJ, right? Because
Right.
they're like, hey, this is this guy is breaking the law.
That's what I had read in the article. That's what I
Yeah.
was saying. So
And then-
that was some of the new details.
And then not to mention, but regardless of if the stuff was classified or not, it's illegal for him to take anything.
Right. Well, that's how
It
classified material
belongs to
works.
us. No. I'm saying regardless of it being classified, it doesn't even have to be classified. It's still.
I was
illegal.
just making a statement though that classified material in general, you can't take that.
Well, yeah, but you can't. The president can't take anything after he leaves office. That's why there's a Presidential Records Act. Guess who owns all that stuff? We do.
Yeah.
That's our stuff.
Looks like so this affidavit shows a high sensitivity of the documents that were taken out of the White House, right? There was, and I don't have all the stats in front of me, but when I read the article, it talked about a number of pieces were some were stamped confidential, some secret, and then a number were top secret. So there's definitely some sensitivity in these documents.
Yeah, related to human intelligence, like the names and identities of spies.
Yeah, there was
things like
stuff that where it said the way some of the documents were worded, they were definitely about agents within spies, etc. The Department of Justice is keeping details about the personnel involved in this close to chest. In other words, not letting out the names of the FBI agents, etc., that were involved in this. And I think you and I would agree that is a good thing for their own protection.
Yeah, I mean they specifically, there's a section in the affidavit too, I believe, where they specifically talk about measures for protection of individuals that are involved with this.
And we saw that there were some, dare I say, unhinged individuals that were going after the FBI in recent weeks. So I think if we can have a measure in there to protect them, I think that's certainly a good thing. And I think many people would agree with you and I on that. So I mean, yeah, there are certainly interesting things that came out. As Trump team claims he could unilaterally declassify any documents at any time. That's what his team is saying.
Well, yeah. So if you haven't had the chance to go look at it, this is for our listeners, Cameron. I know because you said you already read it, but there's an attachment to the affidavit, right? Which I guess it should just be explained that the affidavit is just the formal name for the piece of paperwork they filed to get the search warrant. So This is just the request for the search warrant, which they ended up getting. This is obviously damning, but the last 2 pages of that are a statement sent by Trump lawyers, right, saying that he could declassify all this stuff anyway, so he's allowed to have it, and we turned it all in, etc., which was a lie. And so that's part of the affidavit because they used Trump's own communications as proof against himself, right? Look, I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise. The guy's a liar, right?
So, again, we see this with the affidavit, and we're going to keep seeing more stuff with Trump and legal things, I think, in the news in the coming weeks. And we're almost in September, where I think the January 6th committee is going to be back at work here in just a short amount of time. So, more to come there. Phil, did you see about the Justice Department releasing Mueller-era memos on the Trump prosecution?
I did. So the memo specifically is the memo that was sent to Attorney General Bill Barr by the special prosecutor or special investigator Robert Mueller. How damning is this, do you think? I mean, it specifically said that after doing the investigation, he believes that Trump is guilty of no less than 10 cases of obstruction of justice.
I mean, it's interesting that you say that. How damning do I think it is? I don't. Nothing seems to be sticking to the former president. So
yeah, well, it's kind of that's kind of a quandary, right? Because he does all this illegal shit and then just never gets in trouble.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Is anything going to come from this?
The Mueller memo, no. The FBI search warrant, yes. Well, I do. I think the Mueller thing is already behind us, right? Was he most likely guilty of 10 cases of obstruction of justice? Apparently, yes, he was. But guess what? At the time, we never got to see the memo because Bill Barr just came out and said, nope, he's completely not guilty. It was all a sham, right? And then never let us see the memo.
So let me ask you this. So between the FBI and the Mueller thing that we saw and various other legal things that are going on right now with Trump, I mean, do you think it moves the needle that much right now with voters?
No, but Trump's not running for anything.
yet.
True, but let's
Well, no,
not,
I'm just saying. I mean, we don't know yet. I mean, I know you've said many times you don't think he's going to run again. I think he wants to.
If he does, I think this is going to hurt him.
Does it? So, do you think things like this then maybe move the needle with other possible Republican candidates? Let's say a Ron DeSantis potentially running in 24.
No, not necessarily, because I don't think that. I think that the new Republican strategy, or a big part of the Republican strategy, in a lot of cases, if they want to win in more moderate areas and bigger elections, they have to stay away from Trump. And you're seeing
And some
this
Republicans are doing that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The ones that are doing better and likely are going to win are the ones that are distancing themselves from Trump.
So,
But keep in mind, there's a lot of stuff coming out about this, and it's just going to kind of slowly trickle out from now until November. And so who knows what we'll see? I mean,
yeah.
again, I don't think this is going to have that big of effect because, Trump's not going to be on the ballot for anything in November.
I mean, although he has heavily backed certain candidates that are on the ballots in November.
True. However, I don't think that his crimes don't affect those candidates that he's backed.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there's just a number of people in this country that want to move on, that just want to be done with it and look to the future instead of the past. Now, if there's legal things involved, I'm not saying that we can just move on. But
Cameron, if you break the law, you need to go to jail.
I'm not arguing with you on that. I'm not arguing on. I'm just saying I think there's a growing number of people in this country that are just sick of hearing about stuff like this.
Well, I agree, but I love hearing about this stuff. I don't know that number is growing. I think it's probably just stagnant. There's people that don't want to hear about it and don't really care. But I think that for a lot of the people who think Trump lied to us and we, made a serious mistake and almost, lost portions of democracy, if not democracy as a whole, because of Trump, this is all good news, and we've eat this shit up. I mean, and I will be honest with you, there was a NBC poll out this week that showed that, protecting democracy has moved to the highest priority for voters.
I saw something. You said that was an NBC poll, right?
Yeah, I believe it was an NBC poll. So
I saw something about that.
Now the biggest issue on voters' minds is protecting democracy, and I think some of that sentiment is related to this stuff because look, the guy had top secret SCI. I mean, like you and I both deal with classified information, right?
Oh yeah, I'm not defending people that mishandle classified.
And I'm saying there's some stuff that's like labeled secret that's pretty dull,
kind of vanilla. Well, seems vanilla, but could be.
Well, could cause harm to our country if it got into the right hands.
But the average person reading it looks at it like it's pretty vanilla. Like, what is that? Some stuff.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like like, don't get me started with motor generator maintenance,
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Some people read it like, oh, gee, what is this? This is pretty vanilla stuff. Who cares? But we know that there are certain people out there in the world that do care.
Yeah. Now, TSSCI, though, is not the case that is secret. TSSCI is pretty sensitive stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be curious how this plays out, especially coming into the midterms. I mean, they're right around the corner. We'll see. It's certainly on people's minds. But, you never know until folks go in to cast their ballots here. I will talk about, shifting gears here a moment, though, an issue that is on people's minds and does actually seem to be moving the needle right now. And that is certainly abortion. And we are seeing that articles, stories, headlines, passions bubbling up all over this country. I will say this past week, Phil, I saw a headline, a Louisiana woman was forced to carry a baby. That this woman's name is Nancy Davis. She found out her fetus has arachnia at 10 weeks into a pregnancy. Essentially what this means is that the baby has no skull. Mm-hmm. But the heart is still beating. And so in Louisiana, or in the state of Louisiana where she's from, the law bans abortion, this particular type of abortion, because the fetus still has a heartbeat. So if there's a heartbeat there, no, she can't have an abortion. And she found out about this, like I said, right around her 10-week mark. She's now sitting up at like 15 weeks. Looks like she's now going to be able to go out of state to North Carolina to have her abortion. She had to look outside state. She could not do anything in Louisiana. She was furious because she said, I am being forced to carry this baby that will die. Doctors told her, this baby, you have this baby, it will die very shortly outside of your womb. So, yeah, so she's had to look outside. She's going to travel as far as North Carolina, it looks like, for this abortion. She's raised, here's an interesting one, Phil. She's raised over $30,000 to cover the cost of all this, her travel and everything like that, I guess through a GoFundMe page, I think. And her attorney, a gentleman named Ben Crump, says he's had over a dozen calls from women that are in similar situations as what Miss Davis is. Thoughts on this one?
Well, so I don't want to, we spent enough time talking about abortion, right? We obviously know Americans don't like this. The biggest thing, I think, is that this is a big indicator that, one, we're still hearing stories like this, and they seem to be coming out more and more as the time goes by. Two, look, this guy Pat Ryan, who just won this, this race in New York in one of they say the swingiest districts, this was his sole issue.
Yeah, he
right?
ran on that. And
and so as we shift gears into New York primaries, this is the point that I want to get is that this is only going to get worse for Republicans.
Well,
the more times we hear about this, look, hey, pretty soon, as sad as it is, we're going to hear about the unnecessary loss of a mother's life. I can almost guarantee you that.
And this is an issue, Phil, that you've heard me say multiple times on here is a bad issue for Republicans to be running with. It's blown, the Roe v. Wade thing is basically blown up in their face. I will tell you, right now we're seeing some GOP backpedaling, candidates, I should say, GOP candidates backpedaling on abortion. It looks like Blake Masters, who's running for the Senate out there in Arizona, this past week he removed all pro-life info from his website. Now claims he supports some abortion with restrictions, I guess, up to 15 weeks. Before, he was like a hard no on any type of abortion. He's completely doing a backpedal. We're actually seeing some pro-choice Republicans coming out. I mean, we keep talking about this O'Day guy in Colorado, but that's what he is, right?
Yeah.
And so we're seeing that. But it's interesting that this is a message that Democrats, I said this before on this show, that Democrats need to brand things like this. For Democratic strategists, they need to brand this and keep putting this information out. And this, I will say, Phil, plays right into their playbook.
Absolutely. And so, we're getting into primaries, and I guess we're going to start with New York. But, this district, they said is like the swingiest. It went for Biden by 2 points in 2020. It went for Trump by 7 points in 2016. And then this guy Pat Ryan, who basically is a one-issue Democrat, right? This was the only issue
that was really all he campaigned on. Was abortion rights.
And his, and his opponent even tried to distance himself from Trump and do all those other things that is a helpful strategy for Republicans.
Molinaro, the guy he was running against. And by the way, this is a special election. It's only Ryan's only going to be in there for about 3 months.
It is, and the only reason I don't even want to talk about this as a special election, honestly. It's just a big indicator.
It ties right in with the abortion stuff because that's what this guy was running on.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, though. But it's also a big indicator of what's to come, right? And so keep in mind, what are we, 80 days out? Not even?
I think we're in the 70s now.
Yeah, we might be in the 70s now. There's not that much time left.
I think, Phil, you hit the nail on the head. This is very much a middle-of-the-road kind of district. But again, we're seeing abortion kind of like in Kansas and some of these other states come to an issue or boil up and help out Democrats in these kind of issues, people that are behind abortion rights. So
okay, primaries.
Yeah, well, that's what so tying right into primaries. You talked about New York. They've got New York 12th district was all over the news. That's where Jerry Nadler, longtime Democrat in the House, Jerry Nadler was running against Carolyn Maloney. The only reason they were even running against each other was redistricting in New York. Both of these individuals have been in the House for 30 years each, but now, due to redistricting, they had to face off against each other. This thing got nasty. I mean, these two really got down in the mud, slinging mud at each other. Carolyn Maloney, who Jerry Nadler ran against, said Nadler was old and senile. And they really started going back and forth. But in the end, Nadler won handily 56% to Carolyn Maloney's 24%. So, and I will say this, it's interesting because I hear a lot from Democrats. Hey, we want to be this party of change, and we want to be these fresh new faces, and yet the two big ones they had in this race, Nadler and Carolyn Maloney, are longtime old Democratic politicians. They had a younger progressive candidate in there who barely even registered on the map. So
Yeah, but I mean, also some of that could be where's the district at too. Like, do you know exactly where it is? I mean,
it's one of the boroughs, or it's a borough around, or boroughs, I should say, around New York City. I'm not exactly sure where the lines are
I'm
drawn.
pretty sure it's rich white section of Long Island.
Well,
so
so
let's keep in mind
if it is Long Island, I thought it was actually up and around the city. Maybe
no,
either.
I mean, Long Island's the city.
Depends who you ask. People from some people from up in the city and the only reason I say it is I work with a couple guys from New York that are very passionate about like where New York is and where it isn't.
But Queens is in Long Island and Brooklyn, right?
So,
like,
well, so again, I don't want to start debating where
I'm
the
just
city.
saying, like Jamaica Queens is in Long Island. It is on Long Island.
Either way, right? I will say this: I think what helped here, though, to be fair, was the fact that both Nadler and Maloney had huge name recognition. This third, the third person running with them certainly did not. But there were other things that came out of New York. Another New York City area district had establishment candidate Sean Patrick Maloney. He beat progressive Alessandra Biaggi. And Miss Biaggi was backed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but Sean Patrick Maloney easily defeated her, 67% to 33%. So again, we see maybe a little bit more moderate candidate taking out a progressive there. Also in New York, let's look at a Republican primary in the Buffalo area seat. Phil, have you heard about this gentleman named Carl Palladino that was running up in the Buffalo area for the Republican in the GOP primary?
Only the snippet you gave me before we started recording. So go ahead though.
Well,
this guy sounds like a real winner.
Well, this man's how should I say it? He's far right. I don't even know if that term describes him fully. So this gentleman has praised Hitler. He has made racist remarks about the Obamas, both Michelle and Barack Obama. And this man said Merrick Garland should be executed. Yeah. Not removed from office, mind you. He wants him executed. Anyway, he was defeated, though, by a gentleman named Nick Langworthy, who's the chair of the Republican State Party. Mr. Palladino, though, early on in the race, was actually up ahead a little bit. Now, obviously, as more and more ballots came in, he took out Mr. Langworthy, took out Palladino. Let's just all say it's probably a good reason Mr. Palladino did not move on in that one.
Yeah, like I said, a real winner.
Yeah.
So just for your information, I looked it up. A majority of Nadler's district, or this district that was won, is the west side of Manhattan. So what does that tell you? I mean, that's very rich, white, elite.
I'm just saying, right, at the end of the day, I also think what helped him there was his name recognition, right, along with Maloney's. But a lot came out of New York this week, but let's not forget Florida had a primary also, Phil, and there was some big stuff came out of that.
Yeah, so I do want to talk about Nikki Fried real quick because I thought she was a great candidate. But you're
talking about in the governor, in the Democratic governor primary.
Yeah, the Democratic governor
against Charlie Crist.
Yep, and so Charlie Crist, who happens to be a former governor of the state, won. But did you see what Fried came out and said after she conceded?
I did not.
So she basically came out and said, every single buddy that voted for me or that likes me or has any association with me, we need our votes to go to Charlie Crist. And I think that is like a really that's kind of how we should behave in the modern day, right? But it's also, what she's trying to happen is obviously to get Crist elected now and have a Democrat in office. But I think she's more or less saying to her constituents is that, like, the worst possible option is Ron DeSantis.
So I kind of touched on that last week with Liz Cheney about how she conceded. And, it sounds like with Miss Fried, how she conceded. I will agree with you. I think we need to see more of that. Just people that are up front and, hey, they concede and they move on, etc. She's not dragging it out. Cheney wasn't dragging hers out. I will say in this one, Charlie Crist won actually pretty big. He won 59.7% of the vote to Nikki Fried's 35.3%. Nikki Fried, and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Miss Fried, she represents definitely more the progressive wing of this thing, right? I mean,
yes, she was. I mean, she's progressive. Now, I mean, she was a good messenger, and there were a lot of things that I heard some interviews with her that were really good too. So I'm a little bit disappointed, but at the end of the day, she knows that they just need to get DeSantis out there. Like, if you're a Democrat in Florida, that should be the mission.
So let's not forget, up until a few years ago, Charlie Crist was a Republican.
I know.
Yeah, so I think he's about as middle of the road as you're probably going to find.
I mean, he's a Lincoln Project Republican, right? He's somebody that basically said the party has abandoned me for the most part. And
I don't remember exactly what year he switched over to being a Democrat, but it wasn't all that many years ago. But I think, again, he's going to, if elected, I think his thoughts would be to try and kind of to try and run
that's
things
the thing.
In the middle, right?
That's what we need for the country, right? We need to get away from banning books and abortion, right? And just go back to like sensible, responsible, positive change.
The people I call the moderates.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but also, like, I think there should be some level of progress, right? Like, we should be trying to make our lives better as Americans.
Well,
we didn't just hit it at 1776, got everything perfect and stopped, right? So, there should be progress.
Yet again, I'll just remind you, Charlie Crist, the moderate, former Republican, beat the progressive candidate.
I agree, but it's in Florida.
Which to be fair, in a state like Florida that has gotten pretty darn red, I think if the Democrats want to beat DeSantis, they're going to need a guy like a Charlie Crist.
Absolutely, because Florida is like it's impossible for Democrats, right? Because the way it's redistricted, the way it's set up, I mean, like, there's vast portions of Democrats in Florida where their voting power just doesn't count, especially in a statewide race.
Well, and as I look at this too, we keep talking about, or we both mentioned DeSantis here. So what this is going to mean now is Charlie Crist is going to take on Ron DeSantis here come this November. I saw a poll here from Impact Research that has DeSantis up 51% to 46% for Crist. That particular poll has a margin of error of 3.5%. So it sounds like it's a relatively close race. I mean, I think Ron DeSantis is going to pull this one out. I would be pretty surprised if he gets beat this fall. Phil, do you have a thought on this race early on here?
It's too early for me to tell.
Yeah.
I just don't. I haven't seen much data, and I don't have we seen any polls?
Well,
come out
I just read. Yeah, sorry. I just read the one 51 to 46%.
Yeah, I just don't know that that we've seen much more, like, enough data basically from the state. So,
like I said, I think DeSantis wins it. Charlie Crist, though, there does seem to be some momentum. I mean, I think he'll give him a fight. I think it'll be a fairly close race. But there's some other primaries down in Florida as well. Val Demings easily won her primary, right? Val Demings being Democrat, she was in a primary trying to take on or trying to go up for the Democrats for a Senate seat in Florida. She easily won. She took 84% of the vote in her primary.
Yeah, and so not to throw this back at you, but Val Demings is fairly progressive, right? And won the primary. So we'll see where she goes. I'll be honest with you, I think she stands a really good chance of beating Marco Rubio. That is a race I will talk about, because Marco Rubio is falling out of the sky. Like, he is literally, like, free falling. And he's one of those guys that we've talked about this before, could basically just, like, leave the political spectrum because he's hugely unpopular.
I
mean, he's not hugely unpopular.
Yeah, I was going to say he's got a lot of name recognition. He still certainly has plenty of folks that like him. He's popular.
Yeah, but the guy was a very serious candidate for president a couple of years ago.
Well, and so we talked about this a few episodes back. I mean, and I think I even said that when he was out on stage in 2016 debating Trump, and he was getting he was just getting slaughtered by Trump out there. Remember, wasn't this the little hands Marco or little Marco he kept calling him or whatever? But it was like a gut punch to Rubio that he never recovered from.
Yeah.
I mean, how much have you really heard about Marco Rubio since 2016? I mean, you hear.
You do a little
some,
bit, but I mean, but for the most part, he is like I said, he's fallen out of the sky on this stuff. And if he doesn't win this race, I would be honest with you. I think politics is over for him. He's just going to be one of those guys who, at one point looks like he could be the next president of the United States, and then just disappears off of the political map.
Well, so I was going to say that I think early on in that in the race in 2016, I say early on for in the Republican primary that year when it was first getting going, people were whispering like, "Hey, here's a young Republican who's going to be around a long time. He may not win president this year, but boy, this guy's got a huge political future." Like I said, after those Trump debates where he was really getting hammered, you haven't heard as much. Again, you do hear his name sometimes. They talk about stuff in the Senate and such, but not like we did once upon a time. I will say this though, all indications are Senator Rubio going up against Ms. Demings this fall in November, that this is going to be a tight race. The pre-primary poll that came out mid-August, people were just assuming that Demings was going to win her primary. So the pre-primary mid-August poll from the University of North Florida shows Val Demings at 48% to Marco Rubio's 44%. Phil, that's a 4% or that's a 4-point lead for Demings as of a couple of weeks ago. So you think she takes him down?
I do. I think that there is enough data on that particular race, and I think she's going to win it. I also want to talk about Maxwell Frost. Do you know anything about Maxwell Frost?
Not really.
So Maxwell Frost is potentially, so he won a primary in Florida as well, running as a progressive. He's a 25-year-old who is, basing most of his campaign off of...
I think I did hear about this gentleman. I think I do know who you're talking about.
Guns are his big issue, right?
I think I did hear a little bit about him.
Yeah, and so
I can't say I know a lot about him, but I did hear about it.
Okay, yeah, I got you. So he did say that he's a big part of the movement to stop kids being killed by gun violence in schools, and so we potentially in Florida have the first Gen Z representation that could go to Congress. So that's an interesting one to watch. Not a lot of data out with that yet, just more. I think people are a little bit surprised that he's actually going to be in the race, and so we'll see where that goes moving forward.
Look forward to see some polling maybe coming out for that one. Do you happen to know what part of Florida that he's going to represent?
I don't know exactly, but I would bargain to say it's the same area that Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School is located.
Yeah. Okay. Well, interesting. One other race to look at now, moving from the primaries, just going into the Senate races. We've the last few weeks been talking about Senate races kind of back and forth. Phil, I want to take a minute to talk about the Iowa Senate race. And this one is interesting. Chuck Grassley, longtime Iowa senator, he's seeking his 8th term. Chuck Grassley has been a senator from Iowa since 1980. Mr. Grassley is 88 years old. Now, I want to say that the Cook Political Report and Savato's Crystal Ball have got this one listed as safely Republican right now. But the word on the street is that Mr. Grassley is facing his greatest challenge since he first won that seat in 1980. He's got an 8-point lead right now, so he's got a fairly comfortable lead. But he's running against a retired Navy Vice Admiral named Mike Franken.
Yeah.
And so thoughts on this one, Phil?
Well, I think it's interesting. Unless you're Eric Greitens, I'm generally a pro Navy, go Navy type of guy. But I will say that I think this is really interesting because he could stand to just do something that would be hugely unprecedented. I mean,
Grassley's been in there since 1980.
Yeah, which is wild. So the guy's been in there for almost 50 years.
Yeah. So Franken's been making news. He's been going around making his rounds across fairs across Iowa, grassroots. I will say this: I have a Navy friend of mine who did serve with Mr. Franken and had nothing but very positive things to say about his leadership. I will just say this. I do not see him defeating Chuck Grassley. I think Chuck Grassley's pretty darn safe in Iowa, but it is interesting that Franken is giving him more of a race than he typically sees down there, or typically sees in that state of Iowa. So one to watch as we go forward, much like several of the other races. But
all right. Well, it was an interesting week. I'm sure there's more to come. Hey, before we go, let's just talk about, reaching out and engaging with us. You can go to pocketpolitics.co, take a look at our website. More content is coming, obviously, and then from there you can link to the Facebook page, and we will soon be launching our Instagram and hopefully getting onto some other platforms.
Yeah, and we're putting stuff on that Facebook page. Please continue to give us likes on there and so on and so forth, and follow us wherever you can. And also, hey, reach out to us if there's a race you want to hear about or just a topic you want debated. Send us an email. I mean, you heard us, certainly talking about some big issues today, things like, well, the college student loan thing, but also abortion and some of these other issues that are out there. We'd be happy to take them on. Our blood pressure may get raised slightly, but I promise you at the end of it all, Phil and I will remain friends just like we have done for quite some time now. So, Phil, we're about out of time here. I want to pitch it over to you for your parting shot.
Yeah, so, I think the biggest thing because I forgot what my parting shot was going to be, I'll just go back to my default, which was the excitement this morning. We started off the season fairly rough. 3 games in, we had two ties and a loss for the Reds, but Liverpool came this morning, showed their true colors, and the team that they've been over the past couple of years, and won 9-0 over Bournemouth. So it was a pretty exciting morning for me. I enjoy getting up on Saturday mornings and watching the Premier League, the best soccer league in the world. I know that's debatable, but I firmly believe it's the best.
We've had a lot of debates today, Phil. Are you sure you want to get going with that?
I'm going to open that up for our listeners. Maybe we'll get feedback on that.
Yeah, send us an email there if you want to hear us debate that.
Yeah, the Barcelona fans will get all mad at me and whatnot.
Yeah.
But either way, it's exciting to watch. And like I said, it could not have been, better represented by this 9-0 win. For those of you that don't know, the Premier League is highly competitive, and a 9-0 win is a every so many years kind of a deal. That's not usually, there's less than 5 goals scored in a game. Almost, like most of the time, it's less than 3. So to have nine goals in one game, that's on average a goal every 10 minutes, which is pretty exciting, especially for people that think soccer's boring. That's,
Put some excitement into it.
But yeah, so that's going to be my parting shot for today. What do you got, Cam?
Well, I will say this. My parting shot today is I want to give a shout out to Mr. Willie Geist this week over there on NBC. Well, and actually this week he bounces really between MSNBC and NBC. I mean, they're all the same network, really, or the parent company. But I will say this about Mr. Geist. This week he filled in and was running the Morning Joe show while Joe Scarborough and Mika were off on, I guess, vacation. I didn't hear exactly where they were. But you know what? Willie Geist did just fine, like he always does. I'm a Willie Geist fan. I mean, he's done all kinds of things between NBC and MSNBC, between the Today Show. He's got his own Sunday morning show of some kind. And like I said, he's a regular on Morning Joe. This week he was running it. I thought he did a great job. I'll say this. You know what? Willie Geist, I think he ought to have his own 5-day-a-week show himself, right? Now, I know he's pretty darn busy at the networks, but you know what? Carve something out. Give Willie Geist his own show. He does a good job. I'm a fan. Phil, I think you're a fan of Willie Geist too, aren't you?
Yeah, I like him. I think he'd be a good alternative to Chuck Todd. So I think if he goes anywhere, but as we know, once you shift from NBC to MSNBC, the reverse shift is not quite as easy.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the likelihood of that is.
Well, maybe someday he can host Meet the Press, though.
Yeah, we'll see.
But that's my parting shot this week for that. But we're out of time here, so I want to say this: thank you to all our listeners yet again for continuing to listen to us on our 10th episode. So thank you so much, everybody.
Tell your friends and family, and we will see you next week.
All right, until next time.